Yeah, hi. I'd like to welcome to the stage Phil Roberts from California Lithium Battery, Eric Mika from Ivolu City, and Kevin Noertker from Ampere, as well as Kevin Cole from...
And John Cole.
John Cole, from Skytrend. And we do appreciate everyone staying. While the name of this panel has nothing to do with Hollywood or entertainment, I promise we'll talk about things that have to do with revolutions.
Right, and it has to do with LA as well.
Los Angeles, things that are going to affect your life, things that will make your lives a lot better. Thanks, Rebecca. As Rebecca mentioned, my name is Rudy Salo. I'm a partner in the international law firm of Nixon Peabody. I'm based out of our downtown Los Angeles office. I work in the area of public finance, and what that means basically is I help governments and nonprofits as well as other players get financing on both a tax-exempt and taxable basis. What does that actually mean? At the end of the day, I help roads, schools, hospitals, entertainment facilities like stadiums get built, and that's my job on a daily basis. I represent both governments, nonprofits, as well as banks that lend to get those projects built. I have a passion for transportation. I've worked on some of the largest transportation projects throughout the entire United States. So basically, if you took a road or a train to get here, I probably had some play in the financing of you getting here. So you're all welcome for coming. I do that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the cheap applause for a bad joke. And on my panel, I will let them introduce themselves and let them, since we are running a little bit behind, I'll actually go ahead and let them give you a little taste of what they and their companies do.
Yeah, a real snapshot. 1 minute each.
I guess I'll make this quick. So my name is Phil Roberts. I'm a co-founder of California Lithium Battery. We're doing business in China, primarily focused on one specific product, like Joyce said, is an advanced silicon anode material. So what stores power in your phone, in your electric vehicle, is the anode material. It's generally graphite. So we've developed a product, actually was developed by a Chinese native from Tsinghua University that was at Argonne National Laboratory that we licensed back in 2009. So we've developed a material now that triples the capacity of a battery. Basically, you can extend your car, double the range, what have you. So now we're in commercial production. We have offices in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. And we're working with multiple battery and EV manufacturers, primarily located in Asia and Europe.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Mika. I work for eVelocity. And before I introduce myself, I'm going to do it this way. First, I want to thank Rebecca for doing this all over the world. And I've been on this panel in different capacities over the years.
But only in LA.
Only in LA, yeah, I know.
We got to change that.
No, in New York, too.
Oh, that's right. That's right. New York at NASDAQ, you're right.
So now I work for an electric vehicle company. We recognize that California wishes to have over 5 million electric vehicles on the road by 2030 with 7 million charging stations, which sounds pretty good and competitive, except when we look at China, they have 478 EV companies currently and are incredibly aggressive with government incentives and manufacturing plants and all that wonderful stuff that China can do to motivate and encourage the car companies or electric vehicle car companies. So eVelocity was founded in December. We started with 10 people. Our founder comes from Deutsche Bank. He was the CFO of Deutsche Bank Global. He was also CFO of BMW. And with that, we attracted the chairman and CEO of the European Opel, which is the GM company in Europe, and the top designer engineer of BMW, all their iCars. So we really began a company here in California with 10 of the industry's best in the electric vehicle and combustion engine group. And today we're 290 people based in Torrance. Our car basically is the first vehicle. We have 4 different kinds of vehicles that will come out here in the United States and also in China, where we are currently in negotiations with 2 of the major manufacturers for EV vehicles in China. It's a very, very branded vehicle. It will not look like anything that you currently see, whether it's a combustion engine or electric engine. So it's a lot of fun, and as I wrote to Rebecca, in essence, it's a digital platform. And with a digital platform, just think of it as you guys are producers and entertainers in the industry.
And once you can remove it from the road network, then you don't have traffic anymore, and you can go very, very long distances. So you could commute every day to your work at Google in San Jose from here, and in the same time it takes you to drive to Los Angeles.
I'm very excited by the people that are on the panel with me. I mean, we all know who were a part of the American Revolution. I actually see these players as a part of the transportation revolution, which we are right on the cusp of. It's going to affect everything, every aspect of our daily life, the way we live, the way we commute, the way we work is going to look vastly different in the next 20 to 30 years than what we're used to right now. And we actually are very happy to have these panel members to give their thoughts as to why they do what they do, why do they do it in Los Angeles, what the connection to China is. And I'll just go ahead and start with my very first question for each of the panelists. What opportunities in China do you see for your business that are unique to China?
Well, just getting back to the whole aspect as far as transportation, electric vehicles, we talked a bit about that. The goal right now, and as you know, China is really at the forefront. They've got requirements now that is really pushing the limits of battery performance. And so in the US, there's not really that much focus. It's really just trying to get the cost down as much as possible. But in China, they set targets at 300 watt hours per kilogram starting in 2020. 400 in 2025 and 500, and those are really difficult numbers to hit. And so this is helping drive our technology that we have. We have a silicon anode material. So this is very unique, and it's really China that's driving the advancements in lithium battery technologies.
Great.
Yeah, apart from the obvious aspect also of sales and in the market that's there, of course the technology that we could learn and incorporate. But the other aspect is, regardless of the strength of China, the U.S. and Europe is still incredibly innovative when it comes to mobility, and taking the mobility concept within the vehicle and within society. And as Rudy, you were struggling with making it sound exactly as it is. It's revolutionary, and it's massive because it's going to change lifestyle. And we believe that coming with a California brand into China, we benefit from sales, but we also benefit from learning and incorporating more of their technologies and manufacturing courses, but also introducing to China the concept of the Western mobility development, which is occurring millennially.
Great. So one of the, of course, the energy density of cells is absolutely critical to making electric aviation possible. So when I hear 300 watt hours per kilogram, 400 and 500, it makes me smile. And so certainly we'll be looking at the technologies that are available from developments there. But the most unique opportunity, I would say, is the changing airspace. The fact that the commercial airspace and private airspace in China is opening up, which will drive significant demand for new aircraft, and the opportunity there to use that new demand and pair it against demand for same-day package delivery in areas that don't have dense ground transportation, where regional air travel might be the best way to distribute packages or people. So that is one of the challenges in the United States that we've seen over the last few decades, is that the cost of short-haul air travel has made it economically not a viable business to run, and we've seen an atrophy of most of our short routes. Electrification opens up all of those routes again. China has the opportunity to do this electric from the start and really serve all those customers who want their same-day delivery.
We actually have a lot of interest coming from China, and we're debating internally how to go after that business. China, you see some unique things. You see mega projects like Xiong'an area and Silk Road and things like that there's no projects of that scale in the Western world. Maybe a few in the Middle East, but you see these mega projects. You also see, the autonomous, the autocratic form of government there is good for us because it allows us to bypass a lot of the complicated hurdles you have in the United States to try to adopt new technology in transportation. It's very, very difficult in the U.S. to innovate in transportation because the industry is really locked up by key consultants and a procurement system that just kills innovation at every step. So I think there's a lot of those obstacles just aren't there in China.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on the Chinese government structure regulation versus the United States. In the United States, one of the major problems that autonomous vehicle manufacturers and testers are having is the fact that as of today, they probably have to deal with 50 different state laws. There's a patchwork of regulation, whereas in China, it's more of a top-down type of structure. Now, you have various ministries that kind of overlap that you have to deal with, but it's just different. And I actually see, well, we do have a lot of the autonomous vehicle companies based here in the United States. I think one of the major hindrances is our patchwork of regulation. Next question just doesn't have to go to every speaker, and if only one speaker wants to answer this, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask this question. Does the uncertainty surrounding trade policy in the United States give you any pause? Why or why not?
It gives pause, but it's not. I don't think it gives concern. One, it's a limited administration. At best, we've got 6 years. At worst, we've got 2, or vice versa, I should say. So, no, the industry is moving forward, and of course, the industries that will be hit hardest is basically ours, which is going to be technology, and it both going into China and coming here. But I think in the long term, we're going to be fine, and the long term, as I said, is either going to be 2 years or 6.
I would completely disagree. Those of you who think populism and nationalism is a transient phenomenon, you're wrong. It's a growing phenomenon, and it's going to be the dominant movement in this century, and we better get used to it. I think that these changes are long overdue. Part of what's holding us back right now is intellectual property theft. We've seen it over and over and over again, and it has to stop. And I think what's going to come out of this is some very strong disincentives to steal what is basically people's life work.
See, I promised you excitement, and we have it. I mean, that's the most exciting exchange that we've had. Come, please, agree with me. Thank you. Okay. I'm definitely giving up on my stand-up career. Question number 3. Here in the United States, I know this because I'm a transportation finance guy. That's what I do. I do it on a daily basis. And I think what we all know, because we pay for it at the pump, is the vast majority of our roads and transportation facilities are actually paid from the gas tax, which here in the United States, as electric vehicles are expanding, not like they are in China, you imagine there's more efficiency. People are buying less gas, and unfortunately the gas tax has not been indexed to inflation, and so our highway trust fund is dwindling, and that's one of the major problems why we do not have the infrastructure finance into our roads and transportation facilities that we need. Is there anybody on this panel that is aware of Chinese transportation finance innovations that we should be studying here in the United States? Anything that you've come to learn, like you're like, wow, I wish we had that. I wish we could use that finance mechanism here in the United States.
I guess what I would just say is that the Chinese government is driving electric vehicle industry around the world. They're subsidizing the batteries. So if you go to China, you'll find most of the heavy-duty buses in the city, they're all electric. So if the U.S. government would follow a policy similar to that, or DOE or one of the other agencies, then that would certainly help spur the technology here. Whether eventually you get the cost down, which that's our technology mission, to a point where it's competitive with gas, that's going to take some time. But I would definitely hope that we could get maybe through the state of California some additional funding for electric vehicle applications.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that. But the other issue is it's not just the vehicle, but it's the charging point. And so I was in Sacramento, in San Francisco last week. We're not knocking on the doors of our senators and congressmen from the EV business or from anyone's business, but the oil companies are, the combustion engine companies are, and they're making it difficult for some of our politicians to enact laws. And give you an example of, and it's just an example, the idea of getting charge points along a freeway and granting federal land or state land for these charging points to private companies seemingly is a great idea. However, the Exxons of the world, the Shell Oils of the world are going to go, oh, wait a minute, why don't you do that for us too? So there's a real big issue that government has to overcome here because of the kind of governments and so forth that we have. However, that said, we do have to, the United States does, number one, have to take it seriously that there is a massive change going on globally, and if they don't engage through various incentives, even the simple thing of standardization of EV vehicles in the charge points. So if someone buys car X or car Y, they might actually have two different inputs to charge the car. That's like going, again, to a Shell gas station and Exxon, and it doesn't fit into your car because the car manufacturer, they haven't standardized it yet. So these are very early days of our discussion. It does take an industry to do this, and right now, unfortunately, it's not an EV business. I'm sorry, it's not an EV industry, it's an EV business. And what we're trying to do is really bring it together as an industry, so as an industry we can talk to politicians and policymakers to enact subsidies.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that something as simple as a connection to a charging station could cause so much consternation. But remember all those different iPhone chargers and phone chargers that you had about 10 years ago? Every single company had their own chargers, but now they're all kind of standardized. I actually think that was because of something that the European Union required. So governments do need to get involved in something that granular. It is that important to make things smoother and easier for the rest of us to use these products. Moving on to question number 4. I've already given you an idea of what I think the impact that autonomous connected vehicles and the mobility revolution will have on the world. I'm curious, one or two of the panelists, what impact do you think autonomous connected vehicles, cars, trucks, drones, will have on China and for your business?
Well, I mean, when you think about electrification, it goes hand in hand with automation, right? And so whether it's the power to the vehicle or the power to the computers that are inside of the vehicles making those decisions, I'm sure, opening up new business models and new opportunities for the customer for your revenue stream might actually be an advertiser in the car of the future. From an autonomy standpoint, I feel like autonomy for aircraft and aviation will drive safety that we've never seen before, especially in this smaller aircraft space. Most of the small aircraft crashes or fatalities are driven by pilot error, unfortunately. And the biggest change that I see in our space is an ability to leverage that autonomy, maybe not to make autopilot, but to make safety systems which ensure that pilots don't put themselves or their passengers in harm's way.
I think directly for China, I mean, of course, the lack of combustion engine pollution is major. It's not about getting the same amount of EV cars that combustion engines are and replace them. We're looking at the ride-sharing communities and this new society which is being born, and we're creating vehicles that will be for ride-sharing and ride-hailing. So getting less passengers off the roads and less cars at the same time. And I think that's a massive issue for China. China doesn't want to have, replace the combustion engine one-on-one to the EV. They want less cars in general, which means that there's going to be a substantial shift in the way people use the EV cars, and it's going to be a lot of ride sharing and ride hailing cars.
And it's interesting for my study for preparing for this panel, and just because I follow autonomous vehicle policy in general, it seems that the Chinese as a whole are more willing to adopt autonomous vehicles than Americans are. All the polls are showing that the belief that autonomous vehicles will be unsafe is dropping in China. It's dropping a little bit in the United States, but it seems like they're even hungrier for those autonomous vehicles to come. And perhaps that's because we as Americans have been dependent upon personal vehicles for a lot longer. We've had them here, they've been cheaper here, they've been more affordable, we've been richer as a country, so there's a difference in the generational dependence on cars in China, but it's something that I'm watching and I think is very interesting, the psychological dependence on a personal vehicle. Final question, for other transportation startups or just startups in general considering doing business in China, what do you know now that you wish you knew before you started to consider doing business in China that you would want to impart upon other entrepreneurs considering doing business in China?
I'd say it's even more so than in the United States. Doing business internationally, and especially in China, is all founded on relationships. And so I think it would be naive for a startup to feel like they could go on their own without support and have the success that they might otherwise have in the United States going on your own. And for better or worse, this relationship-driven culture means that you must establish firm partnerships. You must have people you can trust to protect your IP, and relationships take a very long time to form. And so I would recommend focus on relationships, find people that you trust, hopefully people you've had a long-standing relationship with, and then be patient as you grow that relationship before trying to move your IP and your business overseas.
Could we just take that question outside of China? I like the question a lot, but some of them are not in China yet. So just ask, what do you wish you would known, now? The question. Why don't you frame it in a global perspective?
You guys are working in startups. If you had to tell an entrepreneur off the street that said, "Hey, I want to do a startup," doesn't matter what it is, whether it's transportation or anything, what's the one piece of advice each of you would give to that entrepreneur that you wish somebody had given to you before you started working in the startup space?
One thing I'll say is don't underestimate how difficult it is to have to do business far away. It's really tough. We have investors in China, the United States, and Israel. We have a laboratory in Israel, and it is very difficult to support a team that's 10,000 miles away. Video conferencing is not a substitute for being there in person, and you need. If you're small and you don't have a lot of money, I would highly recommend that you incubate your business close to home. Do your work close to home. Bulk up, get some money, get at least through a C round before you go offshore, because it is very expensive and it's a huge time suck when you go offshore. Don't underestimate how difficult it is.
Anyone else? We have about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, I think you don't look. I mean, everyone said the exact same. I believe exactly what everyone has said up here. I think the other issue, though, is believe in yourself and the dream. I think it's incredibly important. And as any entrepreneur, young or old, you look at something and you're going to get a lot of criticism and the comments, "Oh, that's never going to work. An electric airplane." But you have to believe in yourself. And I'll use the Uber analogy of what believing in yourself actually means. So how many people here have an idea of why they think Uber is actually successful? Okay, it's a redundant question. The reason it's actually successful is not because of an app or because they show up when you call them. Living in New York City, you walk out, you put up your hand, I get a taxi immediately. But yet I still use Uber. The reason is that we discovered something that we never knew we actually wanted. And that was, we get in and out of a car without paying for it.
Right.
That's it. Otherwise, it's no different than anything else. So they've taken something that's been there forever, horse and carriages taxis, and changed one small component to it. And as an entrepreneur, look for that one small component that's just not obvious to anyone else.
That's great. That's great advice.
I think we have to end there on that high note. And Rudy, thank you. That was an excellent job moderating. Excellent. Thank you so
Rebecca.
much.
I think Rebecca gets a round of applause for putting this together.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks to Nixon, Peabody, and East West Bank, and KPMG in Pasadena for sponsoring us. Our next event is in Shanghai, August 13. And then we're in San Francisco with Li Kai-fu of AI Superpowers, September 28 at the St. Francis Yacht Club. And thank you, David, for that. And you can ask David for more details. So it's going to be a great, fantastic event, AI Superpowers. And thank you all for coming. And our rooftop party is at 1010 Wilshire, 1010 Wilshire. Parking directly across the street, complimentary parking. I know parking's a big issue here in LA, and I tend, what? Or take Uber. Actually, if anyone wants to give me a lift, or if Uber wants to give me a lift over to the rooftop party, that'd be great.